Namaskar, dear seekers, and good evening to all of you. So today's topic will be about vegetarian, vegan, and non-vegetarian diet. So I would like to introduce myself in short. My name is Cyriaque. I come from France, and I'm doing spiritual practice for more than 20 years. I live in India in an ashram for more than 10 years, and now we are traveling around Europe with a caravan. So now we are actually close to Schweinfurt and between Hanover, and we're actually having the live stream on a side road on the highway. And about SSRF, I would like to explain about SSRF. That is the acronym of the Spiritual Science Research Foundation, and it was founded in 2006 with the blessing of His Holiness Dr. Vallee, that is a saint from India. And SSRF has two main objectives. One objective is to explain about the spiritual dimension and how it can affect our lives, positively or negatively, and in conjunction also with the Maharishi University of Spirituality in Goa, India, that is also the founder of His Holiness Dr. Vallee. A lot of research is done also using biofeedback device to also show how this spiritual dimension can affect on us. And all this knowledge and research is published free of charge on the website. And we have more than 750 articles in English, so I invite you to read and study all the knowledge published on the website. So before we start our session today, what we can do, we can close eyes just to meditate or chant for 2 minutes, so that we achieve some calmness of mind, so that we can follow in a calm mind the live stream. So what I will ask you to do, I will ask you to close your eyes and we can meditate 2 minutes together, and then we can start.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Om Namo.
So you can open your eyes and we will start with our session, with our live stream. If some of you are just joining us in our live stream session tonight, the topic will be about vegetarian, vegan, and non-vegetarian diet, and we will share some point for around 20 to 30 minutes, and the remaining 30 minutes will be your questions, or if you had any experience or any obstacle or questions you have. So just about the recent year, in the recent years there is this trend worldwide, we can say, that more and more people are becoming or choosing a vegetarian diet for various reasons. Some may be love for animals, some may be protesting against the cruelty done to the animals, some their choice is because they want to have a healthier food or for a better health, for better digestion, we can say. So diet is a very important aspect in our daily life routine, because it directly impacts us from inside. So in today's sessions, we will see the spiritual perspective on vegetarian, non-vegetarian, and also how it can affect us at the spiritual level. So first, I would like to explain one important concept about spiritual purity and impurity, because it is important in regards to this topic. We all know that everything is comprised of molecules, or we can say atoms. Or whether from spiritual science or ancient scriptures, there are even more subtle particles that are actually not visible and not known to modern science. And it is in a way comprised in the entire creation, in a way the matrix of the creations, and what we call sattva, raja and tama. So sattva is spiritual purity or knowledge, and it is in a way positive vibration, very subtle. Raja is more action, energy of action that is necessary for things to happen or move. And tama, it's more like impure vibrations, or we can say more negative type of vibrations. So depending on whether it's a human being, an animal, plant, an object, depending on the component, whether it will be either more spiritually pure or more spiritually impure. So also what we share now, food, can also be spiritually pure, or what we call also sattvic, means spiritually more pure, or spiritually more impure also. And through spiritual research that we obtain the readings about those subtle components. So when it comes to non-vegetarian food, it has only 10% of spiritual purity as compared to non-vegetarian, who is 3 times more. So more than 30% of this spiritual purity is in the spiritual food, or we can say spiritual purity. And the reason there is an increase in non-vegetarian diet, it is because when animals are treated or killed, or we can say slaughtered, that memory or that anger or that stress remain in the meat, as compared to, we can say, the plants, where actually it is very less. And it is important from a spiritual standpoint or spiritual perspective that those who are killing the animal will incur much more sin, but the person also who consumes the meat will also incur sin. So if you have any questions, you can also share on the chat. Just also some interesting point about how long it lasts, or the effect it lasts. See, most people in a way in today's time don't do spiritual practice. And when a person just keep consuming spiritually impure food, like non-vegetarian food, at that time, this spiritual impurity will remain in the person. And if one day a person decide, not doing any spiritual practice, but decide to become a vegetarian because they wants to, or let's say vegan or vegetarian, and decide to, because they want to become more healthy, it will take more than 30 years to overcome this negative effect or this negative impurity in the body of the person. But if a person is doing spiritual practice and become vegetarian and does spiritual practice, it will take just 5 years to overcome this spiritual impurity in the body. So I would like to also share with you some interesting subtle pictures. We have some seeker at SSRF who have a sixth sense ability, and they have that they're able to see the spiritual dimension. It's like in a way X-ray. So I will show you now. We will see an image of meat, and you can see that in that image, I don't know if all of you are able to see, it is a subtle picture, how the meat is in a way chicken, or similarly with meat also, or red meat. It has only negative vibrations, attractions of negative vibrations, and at the same time, as you can see, there is this purple it is called Mayavi or attraction, that the person feel attracted. So it is more like a illusory type of vibration that gives a feeling to it. And in a way, all those vibrations are negative. This is in a way, this is a subtle picture of, we can say, myth. We also have done research using biofeedback device to measure what happened to a person when the person consumed vegetarian food or non-vegetarian food. And it was very interesting because I even myself participated in one of those experiments. It was many years ago, and it will take many days or weeks for a person to come back to what we can say a baseline reading for a person who consumes non-vegetarian food as compared to vegetarian food. Now I would like to show you also a second picture, a subtle picture of a banana. It is a fruit. So fruit is completely natural, and you can see it has just positive vibrations. You can see it's a flow, what we call Chaitanya, divine consciousness. So fruit or plant are more positive. And that's why eating, of course there are different fruit who are more positive than others. There are vegetables who are also more than others. But in general you can see how the difference now between what happens at spiritual level, or what can be the vibrations that emanate from, we can say, meat or fruits or vegetable. So as we have also like that lot of subtle pictures on our website. So I invite you to go to our website. Through different articles you may find many different type of subtle pictures, because they are very interesting and quite unique also. So just when it comes to vegan diet, nowadays there is also this trend towards vegan diet that in a way exclude any dairy product from vegetarian diet, that anything that comes from the animal. And some also believe that vegan diet is superior than vegetarian diet. But from a spiritual perspective, vegetarian diet is more spiritually pure than the vegan diet. And this is because the milk, we can say, or yogurt or curd, or we can say also ghee, which produced ethically from an Indian breed cow, is very spiritual. And though the person get much more spiritual purity by drinking or eating the dairy product, as I shared already, for an ethical way, how the milk should be produced and done from the Indian breed cow. So just I wanted also to share also with you what are the different effects of diet on us at the physical, psychological and spiritual level. So by eating a non-vegetarian diet, it increases now the negative vibrations, or we can say the tama component in us, and that can cause actually different disease in our body. And at the psychological level, it increases, similarly, it increases negative vibrations in our body, and automatically will increase those negative thoughts in us. It can increase negative thoughts, anger, it can increase greed, sexual thoughts. Because if that memory of, we can say, anger are remaining, or stress in the meat, will actually imbibe those thoughts in us. And at a spiritual level, with a, we can say, a non-vegetarian diet, the person become more vulnerable to be attacked by negative energy, because at that time the negative vibration in the body increase, and at night also the person is more vulnerable, so it becomes easier for negative energy to affect the person. And just also we want to share that how it is much more beneficial at a spiritual level. A vegetarian diet is spiritually conducive for making spiritual progress or to grow spiritually. And this point also we wanted to share that a person that actually who eat meat also incur sin. So what we wanted to share with you about modern science even today started to acknowledge about the health benefit of a vegetarian diet. And that we have shared also as SSRF, we share that actually it helps us in our spiritual progress. And many seekers have experienced that when they started to adopt a vegetarian diet, their spiritual practice started to improve. But it may not always be easy, we can say, to stop, because if the person is used to eat, we can say, meat for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it becomes difficult to stop. So from a spiritual standpoint, in a way, what is much more important, or this is a message we want to tell you in this live stream, that it is much more important to focus on increasing our spiritual practice, such as chanting God's name, overcoming defect within oneself, such as anger, greed, we can say insecurity, worry, stress. Because automatically what happens when a person does spiritual practice and spiritual levels start increasing, automatically the liking or the desire to eat meat will go away. And we have some seekers who have experienced that when they started spiritual practice, after some time, that liking for non-vegetarian food went away. And some we could see initially they were just trying to overcome it. But instead of using time and energy to overcome or stop non-vegetarian diet, it is better to give that time and energy to change ourselves, to do spiritual practice, such as chanting God's name, because it will automatically happen. In some path, they restrict or say that you should follow a diet or non-vegetarian, a vegetarian diet in some paths. But in SSRF, it is not, we recommend that it is better to follow a vegetarian diet. But it's not compulsory, because what is more important is to purify our mind, is to grow spiritually, and by doing spiritual practice, this aspect automatically happens. So now, I hope something is clear with the different point. In case some point was not clear, or if you have questions about the different points that I share, you can ask questions now, your questions, or if you had experience also, you can also share. I will go through your questions now, look at different questions that you have written. It's just taking some time for the file to come. Not opening. It's just I have small technical problem. It is now. Need to see your questions. There are many questions that you are having. I have questions now. I apologize for the little bit delay. It was taking some time. So there is a question from Sebastian. Is it necessary to buy organic food? So see, what is important, Sebastian, is yes, it is okay to buy organic food, but what is important is whatever is produced, whether it is milk, whether it is different product that we buy, important it has to be done. If it was done in an ethical way, in a proper way, then the chance for the product to be positive is better. It is not always certain that when we buy organic food, the way it is done, it will be always in a ethical way. But it is what is more important. Some people give more importance to buying bio food, organic food, but don't work on their anger or don't work on their selfishness. Because just to understand, we eat organic food, but when we have burst of anger or we are selfish, actually at that time we develop a lot of negative vibrations. So from a standpoint of trying to not create negative vibrations by the food we eat, we actually produce much more negative vibration with our own mind. But if we can have capacity to buy organic food, and it's okay because it's also expensive, organic food, so not everybody can afford. But from a spiritual standpoint, it is more important to purify our mind. There is another question from Wongoloid Wong. My doctor say I have an iron deficiency in my body and recommended to eat more meat. What should I do? Because animals are living creatures and not food. So yes, actually there are those who actually follow vegetarian diet. Sometimes they may have deficiency in iron because actually so there are different grains or also nuts that give sometimes the iron, and sometimes people also add that nutritions or some specific ingredient that gives iron. There are plants where actually full of irons, so in a way we need to know also what are the substitute. But sometimes it will depend, of course, of the person or the illness or the sickness of the person. But doctors also may not know that sometimes there are substitutes of different plants and or products that actually can give a lot of iron. There is another question from Michael Jones. How is this spiritually impure in food measures? So Michael Jones, there are two ways how we can understand. One is through advanced sixth sense. We're able to understand at that level of sixth sense what are the component of what I shared before, Sattva, Raja and Tama. Namaskar, dear seeker. We are actually, as I share now, on the highway now. We are in Germany, doing the live stream on the side of the highway. I wish I could show you but we will put a post also on Facebook to show a small video. I will come back into your question, Michael Jones. I will rephrase your question and answer because I don't know exactly where it stops. So your question was, how is this spiritually impure in food measures? So as I shared, it can be through two ways. One way is through advanced sixth sense. There are seekers or also saints who have high level sixth sense are able to understand, as I shared before, about these three subtle components, Sattva, Raja and Tama, and to see what are the components in a vegetarian or we can say non-vegetarian diet. And through also biofeedback device, we actually use biofeedback device in our research. One biofeedback device is UTS scanner, where we're able to measure the aura. And we were able to see quite drastically how sometimes when meat is consumed, what are the impact on the aura of the person, or even just the meat or the flesh just was measured also, and it was giving negative aura. So this is two ways we are able to measure the spirituality impurity in food. I will go back. There is a question now from Seronita Lost. What about Southeast Asian country where most non-vegetarian food is consumed since birth? Actually, Seronita, there is also in different countries like Europe also, or in US, in many countries around the world, some countries are eating meat since birth only. So it is like that. There are actually, if a person have some spiritual inclinations, then them, even though they may be born in some country where meat is a tradition, they will feel not feeling the need to eat. So that is also, there is this component, regardless country we are born, culture or religion, when a person has a spiritual capacity, potential or level, they may have that not feeling to eat meat or feel to follow a vegetarian diet. There is another question from Sashikant Shingdilvar. If anything is extracted like specific chemicals or compound from animal, insect, which is taken in a form of capsule, also come under vegetarian diet. See, actually, Sakshikant, there are not only capsules that we eat, but also shampoo, cosmetics, where they use also some component from animals. So that will actually affect on us. It will have, whether it is capsule, moment there is any chemicals or even a component from an animal, it will have a negative impact on us or on the person, whether it is intact or put on the body. Because same in cosmetics also, they use animal component. There is another question from Sorab Bodas. Can I feed my dog meat through I'm purely vegetarian? Actually, Sorab, it is sometimes a misconception. It doesn't mean that dogs are actually non-vegetarian, because we have seen, and I myself have seen also in India or in abroad, some seeker having dogs who were actually vegetarian and they were quite healthy. So it is not like by default we feel, no. Actually, we feel by default human beings are non-vegetarian, and we feel animal also, but it is actually a misconcept. Human beings or animal don't have to be non-vegetarian. There is another question from Carlos. A seeker who is already eating vegetarian for more than 5 years, should he start to eat less? So about Carlos, about whether the person is following a vegetarian diet for some time, it is not that he has to eat less or more. It is just as per the appetite of the person. More important, if the person follow, we can say, vegetarian diet, it doesn't have to be. It will depend on the person. There is another question from Megana. If a vegetarian consume meat unknowingly, can the person acquire sin? It can happen. See, Megana, if let's say without knowing, we eat some dish and we didn't know that there were meat inside. This, in regards to sin, now there are two aspects, is knowing and unknowingly. So when the person does something and know, the sin is much more, but when it is unknown to the person, at that time the sin may be much less, but some amount may be there, but it's not so much sin that the person will here have, but it will affect the body to some extent. Similarly, it will affect the person. So here the sin may be very less, but more it will affect the person. So that's why if we do spiritual practice now and something happens, and unknowingly something can happen, we don't know. At that time, by doing spiritual practice, the spiritual impurity get nullified, as I share in the point today, that for a person who doesn't know any spiritual practice, it will take 30 years. Even the person is vegetarian, it will take 30 years to purify the body. We can say to remove this spiritual impurity. And if a person does spiritual practice, just within 5 years, the person is able to overcome. So just why I'm sharing this point is because how important to do spiritual practice. Because today, no, there are so many things. Whatever you eat, you wear, whatever you buy, what you put on it, whether it is shampoo, soap, whether it is meat or non-vegetarian food that we eat, or the clothes we wear, the way they have been produced, where they have been produced, we don't know. So ultimately, more or less in today's time, there are so much, we can say, corruptions and negative vibration is everywhere. So the chance to inquire sins to some extent can happen. So in a way, spiritual practice is a way to purify all these impurities that we may gain through different practice unknowingly. I hope that answer your question, Megana. It's actually a good question. There is another question from Arya Sanatani. When I started pranayam, after starting slowly, I rejected meat from my body. That is a good experience, Arya, that in a way when we start spiritual practice, many are experiencing similar like you, that suddenly after some time they felt not the need to actually eat meat. That is a good thing. There's some other questions. There's another question. Could you just give us some example of super high energy food that we should be eating instead of whole diet? So there is not like that super food we can say, but more important is actually I would like to share with you that eating at home is very important, better than eating outside or outdoor, because when we buy food from restaurants, apologize again, we have that internet disconnection. There is a question from Ardi. Is it important to prefer cooking at home instead of eating outside? And does cooking by ourselves help progress spiritually? That is a very good point and questions, Hardy. And yes, actually it is preferable to eat at home and not to eat outside. Now there are reasons for that, spiritual reason for that. If the person who cooks the food, their thoughts and energy will go into the food. So, and we share also in today's time, many people are affected by negative energy or negative vibrations. So the chance of the cooker or the cook have probably, if he's not doing any spiritual practice, the chance for him to have negative thoughts or negative will come into the food. So that will have an effect on us. So that's why it is preferable not to buy food from outside. See, either it is eating at home and cooking at home. Sometimes some people order food and eat at home. It is the same thing, whether you eat outside or you order food and eat at home. It is the same, because the thoughts will be of that cook will be in your food. So cooking by ourselves, yes, it helps us, because at that time that energy is preserved. Otherwise, that energy that we gain through spiritual practice have to nullify the negative vibrations that we may get from the food that we order from outside or we eat from outside. There is another question from Sashikan. Some non-vegetarian person remain calm and lead a normal, happy, healthy life. Is there any negative result happen to them as compared to vegetarian person? Sakshikan, yes, there are some people. See, we have what happened now. There are some people who are actually eating vegetarian and may get sick, and some people may be eating actually non-vegetarian and even are not good people, and still they have a good life. But just to understand that this aspect of destiny is there. That is a very important aspect, whether they have good destiny or bad destiny. But just to understand, see, a person may remain calm and in a normal happy life. But what will happen to them in the next birth or next life? Because ultimately what matters, no? The amount of spiritual purity will decide where we go, whether we'll go to a higher plane of existence or a lower plane of existence. There is another question from Carlos. Is it okay to eat with your hand, or it is better to use utensil? So actually, Carlos, this is for in India, maybe in some different countries also you use by hands. So it has some spiritual significance. It is not like we can say uncivilized, but actually in India, why they eat by hands? Because there is this science that our fingers, we call panchatattva, the energy flow out of our fingers, and when we take the food with our hand, that energy that comes out, it brings back into the mouth. So this is in a way science behind it. So like that, some of you can try tonight after the live stream. If you want to try to eat by hand, you can try and compare what is to eat with utensil and what is to eat with hand. Of course, depends of your meal, but you can try like once. There is okay, Jessica's. It's good just you are still following us, despite that today we have a little bit of technical problem with the internet connection. So I will go back to your question, Megana. I think I will just share again. Is consumption of egg a sin? So again, it is the same thing. If let's say the chicken are produced or taken care in a incorrect way, and so eating the eggs we will incur sin to some extent. And at the same time, eggs belongs to a non-vegetarian diet because it is more, we can say, tama predominant, more like rajatama. This is what we say, those negative vibrations. There is another question from Gary McDot. Does eating meat contribute to the fear virus around the world? See, just to explain, Gary, that when we eat meat, it increases spiritually impurity in us, in our mind, and automatically it increases spiritual impurity in the environment. So why so many problems are happening in today's time? Because spiritual impurity in the environment have actually grown, and it is much more than how it used to be a few years ago. That's why it is all the problem is actually increasing due to these negative vibrations increasing, and we are actually contributing to it. So if we eat meat, or we get angry, or we have the way we behave, all that incorrectly, all that will actually have the same effect of increasing the spiritual impurity in the environment, and automatically increase the different problems everywhere. There is another question from Seronita Lost. Many of my friends and relatives are animal lovers, but they still eat meat willfully and appreciate it. How to enlighten them? So actually, Seronita, there are on our articles on the website, we show some video, and I think sometimes it's maybe something that may be an eye opener to some people, is to watch on YouTube. Even you can see the video how sometimes animals are taken care or slaughtered, and that really gives you an understanding of the cruelty sometimes given to animal, and that may sometimes help the person to understand and stop. But it's not always the case, but that is something sometimes that we can you can explain the science also of your friends, or they can see such type of videos, because it sometimes can be shocking and give an understanding. There is another question from Anif. I have gone from tamasic, rajasic to sattvic. I mean, I've been from from impure to more pure. I believe it definitely will help me to see and understand things clearly, and hopefully unlock all the knowledge within. As I feel we become what we consume. What do you think? See, and if what is important is when we do spiritual practice, automatically the negative, our body, mind, intellect is actually affected to some extent with what we eat. So overcoming a vegetarian, or we can say going from a non-vegetarian to vegetarian diet will help us to some extent. But what is much more important is to purify our mind. So we are what we eat. Actually, our mind reflects who we are. Our behavior reflects who we are. So purifying our mind is actually the real change. But that is a good thing that already you are able to experience that change from being more spiritually impure to be spiritually more pure. And you say that it unlocks now that knowledge from inside. But what is a barrier in a spiritual progress or experiencing God within? Actually, the block is the mind, our intellect, and ego. So that's why purifying our mind, like we share, chanting God's name, or also overcoming defect of personality such as anger, greed, worry, that actually will be overcoming this barrier to be able to experience the God within. There is another question from Pradeep. How to control our mind by eating vegetable? See, we cannot control our mind by eating vegetable. We can control our mind by taking autosuggestions. Autosuggestion is a technique that Parampuja Dr. Vallee, that is a source of inspiration of SSRF, that it has created this process of overcoming defect of personality, which is self-introspection, to understand which defect is predominant in us and in which situation it surfaces, and then take autosuggestions. This is not an affirmation. Affirmation is more a sentence to control or contain situations, but the autosuggestion is to address the root of incorrect attitude or behavior in a certain situation and replace it with a correct behavior or correct attitude or perspective. So actually it is a real way of overcoming our mind, and this way we are able to control our mind. There is another question from Kedar. I'm suffering from schizophrenia since last 25 years. I'm interested to cure this permanently. So Kedar, this is a bit out of the topic, but it is good you are sharing this point of suffering from schizophrenia. So I invite you to read on the website about mental illnesses, because most of the time the root cause of the problems of mental illnesses such as schizophrenia, or we can say OCD, have the root cause in the spiritual dimension that is being affected either by ancestor problem or negative energy. So you can read the article. We can also, if you want, you can always write on our live chat also. We can help you in this aspect of which type of spiritual remedy you can do. And we had also some interesting article on one lady who were able to overcome schizophrenia by doing spiritual practice. There is another question from Gary. Is committing to daily vegetarian diet a spiritual practice on its own? So Gary just wanted to share his point. See, vegetarian diet is in a way in regards to the body only. So as I shared before, now a person who is doing vegetarian, who start to do vegetarian, to overcome the effect of non-vegetarian will take 30 years. And a person who do spiritual practice will take only 5 years to purify a non-vegetarian diet. So in a way, non-vegetarian or vegetarian diet, is not a spiritual practice. Because spiritual practice is what? Is to purify our mind, to be able to overcome the negative tendency arising from our, we can say, mind or subconscious mind, and unite to God and experience God. And the main obstacle is not the body, it's more our mind, our intellect and our ego. There is another question from Molly. I really want to leave non-veg food, but my family eat non-veg. Can autosuggestions be used to resist me from eating non-veg? So Molly, yes, as I share now, sometimes it is not easy when you have willing to stop eating non-veg and others in front of you are eating and you have that habit for many years, so it is difficult. So that's why autosuggestion may help to some extent. Yes, it may help, you can try, but also if you can do healing remedy as well as also chanting, repeating God's name, either as per different religion of birth, or also we can suggest, if you are not attached to your religion, you can repeat also the universal chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We can paste on the chat and you can download the chant and then you can repeat in mind, because chanting can be done anywhere, anytime. There is no restriction of place, time and space. So in a way, yes, Molly, to keep trying, we have seekers who sometimes do spiritual practice and there are family members who doesn't do spiritual practice. And I know some who sometimes say, I cook for my husband or I cook for my children, but she doesn't eat. And she was able, initially she was eating, but later as she was doing spiritual practice, she was able to overcome. So just Molly, if it's good, if you try, you will be able to overcome. There is another question from Seronita. Eggs are unfertilized, so they are not consumed after killing some innocent life. So actually, just to understand, see whether the eggs is fertilized or the eggs is unfertilized. Just that part of how eggs are more Rajatama. So whether they are unfertilized also, they are more Rajatama and they belongs to, in a way, non-vegetarian diet. See, we are seeing after from that aspect of sin, no? As you say about egg. But here what is more important is to look about this aspect of vibration, what we say, spiritually pure or impure. So eggs are actually spiritually impure. And ultimately what is important, no? In the end, what only count? Whether we are able to increase positivity or we increase negativity. So when we have actually, whether it is through vegetarian, non-vegetarian diet, or doing wrong actions or our bad behaviors, actually we incur sin. Why? Because we generate negative vibration in society or in the environment. Because all is about whether we increase positivity or increase negativity or reduce negativity. And spiritual practice is one way, because when we start doing spiritual practice, no, automatically our thoughts, our actions become more spiritually pure. So mistakes in our behavior, in our actions become less. So slowly we are able to generate positive vibrations. Why we are going down, there is in 4 era. So one era is Satya Yuga. It was million years ago, where the spiritual positivity was very high and everybody was spiritually enlightened. And in today's time we are in Kali Yuga, where everybody is not interested in spirituality. And the atmosphere is filled with spiritually impure. So that's why what is important in today's time is how to increase positivity within oneself. And when there is more positivity within oneself and in the surrounding, then automatically that our spiritual progress happen. And then if we increase spiritual practice, we grow spiritually. Spiritual positivity increase from us, and we acquire, we can say, more merits, we grow spiritually. There is another question from Carlos. Is eating a birthday cake a sin, since they are partly made of eggs? See, again, Carlos, is not always easy. Even sometimes you want to find a cake where there is no egg inside, may sometimes not be easy. It is not like it is a sin here to eat, we can say, a cake, because the amount of eggs will be quite less. But it is just the aspect of it will increase some spiritual impurity in the body. Or after that, it is more important that to focus on spiritual practice. Or some people may start thinking that start to resist. No, how one lady shared before, we start to resist, not to eat cake or not to eat this, because we are used for so many years, and so much time and energy is consumed in that, in trying to either to resist, or the person after is feeling frustrated and is getting angry. By the time, is what is more important is we should try to live a normal and proper lifestyle, but at the same time we should understand that the more important is we should purify our mind, our thoughts and our actions. Because often what happens, people get focused on diet. Oh, I will not, it's this not fat, low fat. Oh, I will be careful of those proteins, these proteins, whether this have this ingredient, less ingredient. So a lot of time and energy is focused in that, instead of studying our mind in more detail. What type of thoughts I had, whether I have a reaction, expectations, and that if we try to put the same amount of thoughts in purifying our mind, then automatically we'll make progress only, and we will feel happiness from inside. Okay, dear seeker, we can end for today's topic. So I invite you, of course, to read on our website. We have this article on vegetarian and non-vegetarian diet, and we have also this, as I shared, we have shown to you first time some subtle pictures, and we have on the website also many subtle pictures of different types. We also have some infographic about this topic we can share also with you, so if you want to share to others. So dear seeker, about this week, that means Thursday and Saturday, we will have our collective chanting meditation sessions, and on Sunday we will have a workshop. It will be of 3 hours duration, and it will be of how to reduce ego and different studies through aura scanners, which is a very interesting workshop. It is through donations, that means you can give whatever you like or whatever you can. It is through Zoom, so you will, when you register, you will receive a private link. And next week we have, in our next live stream session of question answer, it will be of how to overcome addictions, different type of addictions. So if you know some person that may be interested on this topic, or you feel that it may help them, you can share. We are going to paste the link, so you can share to them also the link. So these are just apologies for today about our internet connection. So I hope next week we will have a better connection. So dear seeker, gratitude and namaskar to all of you.